right, guys, welcome to another episode of Behind the Visual, where I talk to all those people responsible for those pictures and videos and all the images and all the things you see out in the world every day. And today, my guest is Monica Zaffarano, and Monica is the brains behind Trybe Production Collective, and she is a producer, a commercial advertising, print, and video content producer. And today we're going to talk to Monica about all kinds of things, especially how a burlesque show led to her becoming a producer. We're also going to hear about how she was a dancer, a model, and an actress for 4 years in Europe, and she was on TV and all kinds of places. She also did the same thing over here in America. She was playing bongos in a band, fake playing bongos in a band for a famous American actress who's also a famous singer over in Germany. And we also discuss the viral Sears commercial that she's in from the 90s that went viral over, I think, lockdown during COVID. So listen to check that out and figure out what commercial that was and why it went viral. We also discussed the shoot she had with Elton John and Dua Lipa, which she gives her advice for anyone wanting to be a new producer, or basically anyone in general. I think it's just very good advice for people in general, especially in this industry. So lots of other stories. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. It was lots of fun talking with Monica. So yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think. Thumbs up it, like it, share it, all that kind of stuff, and look forward to hearing what you guys think.
Yeah.
So tell me, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the West Coast, or did you grow up East Coast, Midwest? I mean,
Iowa.
Iowa. Okay.
Yeah, I am an Iowa girl, not a farm girl, but my dad was in academia, and so it was a very cultured, like really rich childhood. But I grew up in Ames, Iowa.
Right. Okay, so my daughter, my oldest, when she was growing up, my dad would always, well, she wants to be a social worker now. She's going back for a master's in social work. But basically, she wants to be a therapist for drug and alcohol abuse, basically, so she can spot all the people lying. She wants to be a detective, really, but
Oh,
she didn't have to be a cop to do that, to be a detective with this job. But when she was little, she would kind of like try and tell everybody what to do. And my dad called her the directress, because she was always like, we need to do this, we need to do that, we can do this. Were you like, since you're a producer now, were you anything like that as a kid? Or
nothing. I was nothing like that. Actually, it's people are always a little bit surprised to hear, but I was painfully shy when I was young.
really?
Yeah, I was painfully so. Youngest of six.
Okay.
So of course, like, growing up, by the time my folks got to my next sister up and me, the reins were pretty loose.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, and also I was able to, I really didn't know my upper four siblings because they'd all but moved out of the house by the time I was sort of cognizant and a little bit more than a little shit. I was shy. I was very awkward. Yeah, I would not say I was more of an introvert than an extrovert. Funny
Really?
enough. Yeah.
When did that change?
Through life's
Huh?
journeys. I've had a very crazy life and journey to now. And I think there is a bit of and maybe is a bit of that rebellion of being the sixth kid, but I would almost take up a challenge. I think wasn't even keenly aware of it, but I would do things because they weren't the normal things to do. And I know that, as soon as I graduated high school, I wanted to get the heck out of Iowa.
Yeah.
I knew that the world was much bigger. And so the minute I graduated, I was gone.
Where'd you go?
Oh, I did so many things, honey. I was first a ballerina. That was my first chosen selected career. In fact, I was like full on studying. Like I'd go from school directly to the ballet school and be there until 9 o'clock at night sometimes.
Oh, wow.
And then I did a stint in New York one summer for summer school at the Joffrey.
Really?
Yeah. And it was there. I was always tall for my young age, and also most especially, as a ballerina, they don't love tall.
Yeah.
So I was pretty tall. I'm 5'10" now, but in those days I was getting up there. And so that summer in New York, I stayed at the Joffrey. No, I stayed at the what was it called? The Markle Evangeline Residence for Women. It was a females. It was in the village. It was like,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, it was like Sixth and Avenue of the Americas or something like that. Sixth Street. It was down in
Okay.
the village. And it was just, I had like four roommates, and it was all of us, in bunk beds. I never forget these little moments in life, but one woman, I can't remember if she was a teacher or if she was a hair and makeup artist. But she had narcolepsy or something. So I don't know if that's the actual condition, but she slept with her eyes open sometimes. And it's really startling. Because you'd wake
Oh
up
my
and you'd see
God.
her, like, her eyes are open and you start talking with her and she's not awake. So that's probably not narcolepsy. That's another condition.
I'd like to know how you can do that because that would be great for meetings.
moments like that, yeah, seriously, moments like that I'll never forget. It was sort of an eye-opening summer, and I was sort of exposed to everything else out there, like Broadway and Bob Fosse and just
Yeah.
everything else. So I realized then that I didn't have the blinders on to be a ballerina. Um, and I came back and started exploring theater. So I was still in high school, but I started exploring theater and a little bit of this and that. And so when I say I moved, when I was right out of high school, I moved to Des Moines, Iowa, which is just 30 miles away from Ames. And I I had a little apartment. I had an older boyfriend who was doing theater. I started doing theater. Um, I started, yeah, so it's a long story, lots
You're
of
an
ebbs.
actress?
I
Oh, oh,
was, I started doing theater and did cabaret and did a few things at Ingersoll Dinner Theater in Des Moines, Iowa.
really?
In the meantime, bartended. And here's some moments in my life where, I said yes to things that maybe somebody with sort of common sense wouldn't. I had met a gentleman who had come in for the course of the year that I was bartending at this particular restaurant in Des Moines, Iowa, and we got to be friends. He was a medical student at the college there, which is a great medical school in Des Moines, Iowa, and we got to be friendly over the course of the year. And at some point, we started just hypothetically talking about travel, and I always yearned to travel. And he suggested that how about I come over to Vienna and experience the Sylvester Ball, which is the New Year's Eve, at the theater in Vienna. And I
Oh,
thought, okay.
wow.
So
Yeah.
I went ahead, and at this point, like I said, with the reins and me being the youngest, I think my mom and dad, they knew I was an adult, but nobody kind of said, you know what, you should probably not do that. Well, I went over and thankfully got out unscathed, but it was a little bit tricky to get out. But I realized I had this incredible experience, and so I always had a bit of that spirit. So that when you say when did it change from me being an introvert to more of an extrovert, I think my life's journey sort of brought that out of me. And then of course I came back and
Okay, wait,
decided
wait.
that,
Can you elaborate on the escaping Italy, Vienna thing, or
yeah,
you
well,
like
I was
totally?
so he had, from the get-go, laid it out, given me a ticket. His family was very wealthy. And he was a medical student, so a very serious guy. But again, through the course of a year, I felt comfortable and friendly with him. And so he had basically pitched me, how about you come and meet me over in Vienna? We'll go to do the Sylvester Ball, and you'll have your own hotel room. And so during the course of my time over there, I've never spoken about this, publicly, but because it's a bit of a ding dong experience, that I did this, put myself out there. But during the course, of course, when I got there, I had my own hotel room, and I thought, wow, this is exactly what I thought it might be. And it was magical going to the opera, the Vienna Opera, and experiencing this Sylvester Ball. It was absolutely magical. I met another young woman. I can't remember where she was from. She might have been German, not Austrian, but might have been German. But another woman who was with his friend group, and it felt very lovely. I think I was scheduled to be there for like a week and a half. But at some point, like the plumbing in his hotel room wasn't working or something, so he needed to move into mine, and I started feeling, yeah, this is not going where
Did
this
you
is
check the
something that,
plumbing?
yeah, my hair on the back, everything kind of was like spidey sense. Okay, you need to make a move. And thankfully, one of his friends who was really cool helped me change my ticket so I could return early. So I actually came out unscathed.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I was like, I would like, all right, let me check your toilet and your
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
Let's see if this
So
is true or not.
So, I've always sort of, I have never shied away from experience and opportunity. And yes is my typical mode. I'll try something always. And this is kind of, it started early, I guess. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
so that's that.
How far is Vienna from Italy?
I have to look on a
Yeah.
map exactly because it's been a minute since I've been to either country.
Part of the
It's,
reason, would you go back to Vienna?
oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's a magical
My
place.
daughter's going to be
Absolutely.
in Italy for study abroad starting at the end of this month, and I'm like, that maybe that she should go check that out while she's there.
You know what? Absolutely. I mean, it's so easy to travel over there. And so I did spend time in Vienna, but I also at another chapter, which we haven't talked about yet, but I actually lived in Europe for 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
when you come back from Vienna,
Yeah.
back to Iowa, what happens then?
So gosh, I come back. I'm still, I think it's when I stay in Des Moines for I was doing theater. I started doing a little bit of modeling with
Okay.
Meredith Publishing, which is a big publishing house there.
I
And
used to shoot for them all the time,
oh, good Lord,
until
you
my
may have shot
creative
me.
director left.
Wow. I actually digitized all my modeling images from my,
Really?
5 years. And oh my goodness. I was just showing somebody the other day, actually, and it was just sort of like, tall hair and, high waiter pants and
Oh
like
yeah.
really sexy stuff. Um, yeah, so I look probably, they tried to make me look 40 when I was 20.
Oh, of course, yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so I did a bit of that. And then I think I had the opportunity from a friend of mine named Tim Thomas in Iowa. We had done some theater in Iowa together, and he was moving up to Minnesota. So we decided to become roommates. He was this lovely gay man, friend of mine, and a theater buddy. And so we decided to move up to Minnesota, and we got an apartment together, and it was super fun. And there I started dancing with a dance company, continued modeling, and had no sights on acting yet, or any of that stuff. So during my time up there, I I met a fellow who in 4 days, and we had sort of this crazy, we fell in love, in 4 days back then,
Yeah,
as you do when you're really
yeah,
young, right?
yeah.
And swept me off my feet. And he was visiting back in the stateside, visiting his father in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. And he had to return back to Europe because he was a professional model over there. And so this was September of that year. And that next January, I was ready now to move to New York. That was my plan. I wanted to move to New York and learn to, continue studies on being a triple threat, singing, dancing, and
Right.
acting. So that was my plan. So in this 4 months time, we were calling, he was now back in Europe after 4 days of being together. He flies back to Europe. In those next 4 months, we're calling on the phone, we're writing letters and building this love affair up and up and up and up. And he finally says, "Hey, why don't you come on over to Europe?" I'm still modeling in Minnesota. He said, "Why don't you come over to Europe and you can model, I'll model, we'll trip the light, fantastic." And I thought, okay.
Yeah. Where was he from?
He was from Minnesota, Minneapolis.
So where are you? Oh, I'm sorry. Where was he living in Europe?
He was in Milan. He was,
Okay.
when you're a model in Europe, you kind of have a mothership, like a mother agency, and then you satellite and you have an agency in all the cities. So at that time, he was in Milan.
Okay.
So instead of going to New York, I pack up my life Again, nobody telling me, hey, you should think about this.
Right.
I just did it. So packed up my life. Now, mind you, I'd spoken a bit. I'd learned French in high school.
Mhm.
French was my second language, if you will. I wasn't proficient at it, but I could get by.
Right.
So I'm dropping into Germany, Dusseldorf, which is where he was supposed to return. He had just gone down to Milan. I'm sorry. So he was basing in Germany, in Dusseldorf, Germany. But at the time when I arrived, he was down in Milan. So I arrived at the airport, my sweet, innocent, very ignorant to life self with all my stuff and my high hair, and I see Aaron's not there at the airport. He has sent the pensionee's son, who doesn't speak any English, but he had my last name Zaffarano on a placard, on a poster thing, on a note.
Okay.
And that he shuffles me. We drive out into the like farmland because Lohausen is where I landed. Lohausen was a little suburb of Düsseldorf, Germany. Düsseldorf is a very big city, and Lohausen is kind of farmland country town.
Okay.
So probably maybe 30 minutes out. So that's where the pensione is. I learned to understand that Aaron was stuck in a freak snowstorm in Milan. And because they don't get snow very often down there, he was stuck until they could figure out snow removal and, figure all that out. So he didn't arrive to Düsseldorf for a week. So there I was, me and a bunch of some other American models in a pension, and I'm sort of like learning the ways and hearing their stories. I don't think I ventured out hardly, waiting for him for a week.
Oh, wow.
By the time he arrives, he is now sort of he's doing some big campaigns. Like he was doing Armani and like big campaigns. He was a big
Oh,
model. And I wasn't. I was like, young and fresh off the boat, if you will. So we quickly realized it took about a month for us to sort of end the relationship because we realized that we were kind of like this.
right.
But I had too much pride to turn around and come home, so I stayed.
How long did you stay?
4 years.
4 years
Mhm.
in Germany?
All over. I was like everybody. I would get, I would be in Germany. Germany was my mothership agency,
Okay.
and it was called an agency called Model Pool, and they would send me set up with another agency in a different city. Like I was at Paris planning in Paris. I had an agency in Vienna. I had an agency in in Amsterdam, so they would set me up with agencies and I would travel in. They would set me out on go-sees, and yeah, so I did all that for 4 years.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. All
Yeah,
because of some dude you met and fell in love with in
yeah,
days.
yeah. But it's the power of like you just don't know the course of your life. If you do say yes to something that might kind of feel crazy, it'll change the whole course of your life, and it's kind of fascinating, right? If
Sometimes it's
if
good
I
not to
had
have your
not,
parents
huh?
sometimes it's good not to have your parents telling you don't do it.
Yeah, it's that's kind of like what my life has been. It's like I kind of take the path least traveled, I suppose.
I like
Um,
it.
and not with purpose, but I think I've had a very interesting life because of the crazy stuff that I've done and the life experience that has brought me out of my shell. I am definitely no longer an introvert. I go through fits and starts. I would say I'm an extrovert. I'm an extroverted introvert.
Mhm.
That's what I would say I am because I really love home life. I like my solitude. Um, yeah, and if I hike quite a bit here in Los Angeles, and I am actually almost prefer to go hiking alone just because
Okay.
I like to go where the wind takes me on that day, and I'll find myself here or there. It's just much easier, less
No,
planning.
I understand that because I
Yeah.
really enjoy being on set. I enjoy being around the people, going out to dinner
Hmm.
afterwards. But I have these moments where I need to be by myself
Hmm.
to recharge and
Yeah.
be able to build up whatever I need to go back out and do it all over again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's part
So I
of
don't
our
mind being by
business.
myself.
Yeah, I think that's a necessary thing that people need to always take into account. You've got to fill up your cup, however that looks, whatever that is for you. But I think that's a big important thing, especially in this business where we're putting out daily.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes through not just 9 to 6, right? Not just 8 to 6, but it's like in the evening I'm working on estimates. I'm sharing. I'm communicating. I'm trying to get a job with a photographer, and so it's just, yeah, so you need to absolutely choose those things or find those things that make you happy and refill your cup.
Yeah, even if it's just a short bit, because I've been on shoots before where it's just people around you nonstop, and maybe at lunch I'll take off and go hide away for 30 minutes.
Mhm.
Just and then I can come back and go, okay, I'm cool, I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
just got away for a minute and I'm good and I'm all back to normal. But so I think, yeah, you're right. Do it however you got to do it. Take it whatever
Mhm.
time you got to do it, but it works out. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
It
fun.
only benefits everybody around you and most importantly yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So after 4 years of modeling in Europe, what happens next to Monica?
Oh goodness, you're really getting the whole
Oh, I want
shebang.
to know it all.
Well, while I was in Europe, actually, I did get the opportunity to teach some dance classes.
Ooh.
I found it very interesting because our je ne sais quoi, the Americans sort of go to, excitement about life, I think was very welcomed over there.
Mhm.
Because Germans, as you can imagine, has been written 1,000 times, they're very regimented and they like order. Whereas here comes this American who's like, "Nah." And I found that the carpet was just laid for me, like, to teach dance classes. Sure, I've never taught a dance class, but sure, I'll teach a dance class. And I did that a little bit. I started diving into actually film and TV. I did some of that work over there as well. At the time, they would dub my voice,
Right.
so everything was dubbed at the time. It was shot in the can. So I did some commercial work over there. I did some crazy things. I had one other before I let you go, just because it'll tie into my future story when I get back stateside. But I had toured. So Sherry Belafonte, who has a
Yeah.
career, at least had a career like David Hasselhoff in Germany, big in Germany.
Really?
Oh, yeah, singing, mind you, singing.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And
They just like
Sherry,
actors who can sing over there or what?
I don't know, but they'd have a career over there, whereas here they wouldn't, right? So
Right.
as an actor, as a singer. So Sherry and super lovely lady, she came over to Europe, and I think her people reached out to my agent, and they were looking for somebody just to pretend to play bongos on her canned, TV shows and TV performances. So they hired me. I can be seen, and this can tie into a later story, but just faking playing bongos as in her backup group
Oh
while
wow.
she's singing, and it was just the funniest thing. And we did a few dates together. So that was silly. I also got with a band. They were looking for. Basically, it was me and a fellow named Mikey, who was also a singer dancer. Now I'm the singer dancer, front singer of a band. We actually toured. That was a fun
Really?
little escape, yes, and crazy, crazy, crazy.
So you
Um,
toured Europe.
huh?
You toured Europe.
Germany,
Germany. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
North and South. It's a big, big
Okay.
country.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so I fast very forward. Near the end, I started getting the bug because I was doing a lot of TV work over there. That I thought I want to be an actress now, but I have to go stateside to do that. I can't do that over here. And at 2 years into my 4 year stay over there, everybody in the industry speaks English, and Germans very happily push forward their English before speaking to you in German, right? So it's very hard to learn German when you're in
Love
Germany
that.
because they love speaking English. That's their second language. So I decided, by God, I need to pick up some of the language. At this point, I'm living in it. It's in the back brain. So I put myself into a German night school,
Oh,
and year two into year three. And at this point, things clicked. And so then my capacity to speak German came to fruition. And so now I'm speaking German, but I still know I need to come stateside to be an actor. So I decided I was sort of near 3.5 years. I was staying pretty busy as an actor slash model. I was doing a job. I got booked on another job in Saint-Moritz, Switzerland. And so from Munich, now I'm living in Munich, and my agency rents me a car. I wrap the job in Munich at 8 o'clock at night. I drive about 4 or 5 hours down to Saint Moritz. I come into this pensione, at the mountain, in this mountain town of St. Moritz, skiing town. We're going to do ski wear. I'm modeling ski wear the next day. There's everything's so quaint over there. And like, we were staying at like a hotel, but it was one of these hotels that's much smaller. They left a placard, like a folding thing with my name on it and the key
Oh,
for me
wow.
at the desk. So it's like, well, here's your key. You're in room such and such. So I checked in at like 1 o'clock in the morning, had to do a turnaround and be on set the next morning in the bright and sunny mountaintops of St. Moritz. So we're modeling now ski wear. And on that set, it was me and two fellas. So I was a female model and we had two guys. So it was the three of us modeling ski wear. One of the fellas that was on that set with me became my husband.
Really?
That's where I met my ex-husband.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So he came back to me with me to Munich. And then he was also planning to come stateside. So about after 4 years, we both flew back stateside. He went to Miami, which is where he was based. I went to back home to Iowa, and my sister, by default, of Miss Minneapolis. My sister got married in Minneapolis, and I came out to LA for a short time to live with one of my other sisters. So anyway, Jeff and I went back and forth, like physically, like flying back and forth until we finally decided to give it a go. I went to Miami, landed there. I did a lot of TV work. Again, the Germans kind of loved me at the time. And so I still modeled and did that stuff. And then we decided to get married and we decided to come back. And the funniest thing is, I met this fellow in St. Moritz, but he was from Springfield, Illinois.
Wow.
You can't write this shit.
No, my God. That's
So
crazy.
we decided where's the best place we could go, be close to family. And we decided Chicago would be it. So we decided to move to Chicago. And I was still rocking with my work, and he was sort of over the modeling work. And he decided he wanted to be a contractor. And so we bought our first house, first 3-flat. I got pregnant. I almost had my baby in that apartment because I was trying to have a home birth. Yeah, it was crazy, but we were married for 6 years and got divorced when she was 2. And from then on, I, continued my life up there as a single mom.
Okay.
And was acting for a while, and got into, things are really tough as a single parent,
Yeah.
raising a kid in the city. But I found my way, and look at her now. So somehow I got into by organic path. I was doing TV work still there. This is where that tie-in to the what was the tie-in? I got booked on a commercial for Sears air conditioners. The tagline of this commercial back in the 90s was hotter. Let's see. You'll call now. That's the tagline of
Oh,
this
yeah.
commercial, Sears. It went so the tie-in, and how was that a tie-in? It was something that I was relating to.
Yeah, I remember you saying it, and I'm totally blanking on what it was.
Yeah, I'd have to
Like, okay,
rewind.
I need to listen, but
But so fast forward many years, it's COVID. Emma and I, my daughter and I, are cohabitating in Chicago. And, contrary to a lot of everybody's experience during COVID, I didn't mind it actually. Emma and I got to be great cooks. She would cook something extraordinary. I would clean. I would cook the next day. She would clean. It was pretty smooth. It's sort of nice to not feel the angst to find jobs, to work. What am I not doing? Because nobody's working. And so
right.
there was, for me, it was quite relaxing in Chicago. And during that time, when you're watching a lot of TV, a lot of TikToks and whatnot, Emma found me on TikTok. She said, "Mom, you're viral." And she showed me this silly commercial that I did back in the 90s. And people have, like, kids in the 90s basically would say, what commercial lives in your brain rent free?
Right.
Everybody, all these kids from the 90s know this commercial. And I don't know why it went viral, but people are spoofing it all the time on TikTok. So, you know, when you go down the rabbit hole, I kept on seeing it over and over, done many different ways with these kids doing TikTok viral videos. It was the
That's
funniest thing.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's
And
really
so
cool though.
she, yeah, it was really silly. During COVID, she found somebody that had read something on Reddit looking for us, looking for who are these talent? I need to know who these talent are. I thought, oh, well, here I am. I decided to download Reddit and I wrote back to that gentleman. And I said, here I am. And he was, you know, mind blown and very excited. And it started a conversation. And he said, can you find who is the actor? I would just love to know. And so that set me on a path because I'm quite a sleuther. So set me on a path to try and find who that actor was. I couldn't remember his name at first. So I called my SAG office in Chicago. I'm still a SAG carrying
Oh,
card
cool.
member. Yeah. I called my SAG office back in Chicago and they couldn't give me his contact info, but they gave me his name. So I just went for a few weeks or a week or so. I started diving deep, trying to find Gus. So I found him. He lives in LA. He's a writer, actor. And so that was funny. So then I got reached out to. Now I'm in LA. I've moved to LA 2.5 years ago, full time.
Oh, wow.
And I meet up with Gus. We finally did a first meetup since all these years ago, and it was quite
I should
delightful.
recreate the commercial now.
Well, I would like to, and anybody listening, if anybody wants to help make that happen, God knows I have enough people here in Los Angeles that could help me make that happen. I'm trying to get Gus to, you know, understand the value of this,
Oh,
how
yeah.
funny that could be, since we already have an audience. And
Right.
anyway, so I've got to get him on board, but I certainly have enough people that would help make that happen for
Well,
me
I'm
with me.
sure.
But I had somebody reach out to me. We're talking about everything but the business, but our industry, but we're
That's
getting
all
there.
right.
We're
We
almost there.
we can get back to it. At some point, it's fine. I like it when it goes off into different things.
Oh my
That's
God,
really
we've been on
cool.
a tangent since we talked on. So I had a fellow reach out to me who is a freelance writer with the New York Times and other very important newspapers around the country, and he had been wanting to do something on you know, this iconic stuff, and he wanted to do an interview on us. So
Really?
that's, you know, kind of extra pushed me through to find Gus. I found Gus and he interviewed us. That was a great article actually. But just how this kind of went so viral that kids of the 90s just like this, I don't know. It
What
was
was the
the
tagline
silliest.
again?
Huh?
What was the tagline again?
Oh, you'll call now. If you look
Okay.
on TikTok, Sears, you'll call now, you'll find all the spoofs. And, you know, I just remember when we shot that, it was on a shoestring budget. We shot it, the director, we used his girlfriend's house, like no budget. And she was miffed that I was having to open up the freezer all the time because it would let the cold. It was just like all these things. And here's a funny bit. I had just learned that I was pregnant. And I just popped just a little bit at 5 months. I
Right.
was wearing my same clothes up until 4 months, and I didn't realize that I might be pregnant, and started suspecting it when I was on a Land's End job as a mom down in Miami or down in Florida. So I booked this job and I discovered that I was pregnant. So I can't suck in my belly at all, right? And I'm a little
Right.
concerned if I let everybody know, they're gonna fire me and hire somebody else. So
Right.
I conspired with the wardrobe stylist that we'd keep the tea towel in front of my belly. And so had a little baby in my belly when
Oh,
I got
wow.
that commercial.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. But anyway, so, you know, so producing came as easily, the transition into producing came organically, like my life kind of unfolded. It's like
Yeah.
one thing.
So at what point did the whole producing thing start for you?
Okay, here's a big chapter that we haven't discussed, but when I was back in Chicago, I started getting antsy I wanted to, let's see, I think my marriage was sort of not going well. And I had done a photo job. It was with Jimmy Krantz. He's a pretty famous, pretty well-known photographer. He now lives out here. He used to shoot all Marlboro stuff, Marlboro content. And this was a job I was hired to do with Jimmy Krantz. They were shooting it. I think they booked me just because the hair, because I had long curly hair back then.
Yeah.
They needed somebody who could dance, who would wear a cowboy hat with a hair and a flowy skirt. And he was shooting from above, two couples swing dancing.
Okay.
So whatever, you know, it
Wow.
was me and another guy. And then the second couple, the woman was more of a dancer than an actor. And during the course of our day spent together, she said, "Oh, you're tall. I'm tall. You need to audition for this thing that I do on the weekends." And it's like this variety show that was held at a beautiful place called the Black Orchid Supper Club in Chicago. And she said, "Please audition for it. I would love to have another dancer who's my height because I dance only with shorter women. It would be so great to have you." And I'm like, okay, because you know it sounded interesting and silly and a distraction from my life that was not on the rails as much. So I booked it. I would do it. He'd make, you know, I'd make $100 a night. You know, it was just like on the weekends. It was sort of for corporate events, so it was very staid. It was very relaxed. You know, they would bring in a big band. They'd have big band with swing dancers or with fan dancers,
Oh, yeah,
Sally
yeah,
Rand
yeah.
fans, those big fans. They'd
Yep.
have, you know, the other menu would be a big band, fan dancers, and a singer. You know, so they had a menu of items for these corporate
Oh,
events.
wow.
I was just a menu item, right? It was
Okay.
me and a few girls, and it was a lot of fun. And during the course of that, I decided how much fun would this be if it was a little bit more sexy. And so this was around the time when the Pussycat Dolls were sort of
Yeah.
rising.
Yep.
And I needed to create a show, and it was going to be a burlesque show. It was going to be a very classy but sexy show. It would be more visually impacting, you know, like with objects and, you know, light effects and stuff, but no tassels and no G-strings. So it would
Right.
be really like costumed, but beautiful and aesthetically beautiful. You know, I came from that world of the aesthetics and, you know,
Yeah.
photography and the eye. So I found a young fellow in Chicago who became my collaborating partner, Eddie Ocampo, who was kind of a celebrity status choreographer in Chicago at the time. And he helped me create this thing called Flirt. The owner of this theater was a big fan. He opened up the space to me to put this show on. Now this was not a small show. This was an hour and a half long show with an intermission.
Oh,
It was
wow.
all about the taboos of desire. It was a very fun, like I said, fun, sexy, but you know, not bawdy show.
Right.
I at first was part of the dance, was one of the dancers in it. We had a singer, we had a torch singer who was amazing. I had an MC, and we had a quintet, a jazz quintet, live on stage. So I made sure to pay everybody. It might have been a pittance, but at least I was paying everybody.
Right.
I had a beautiful camera package. I made specialty props. One of my senior oldest sister, she came in to help me build some props.
Oh,
It
wow.
was a big effort for about a year and a half of building it, of creating the style and the songs and the dances, and it was really a labor of love. And it was through this vehicle, I had a lot of friends and family that would come to support my shows. It was a 300-seat house. When we did it at the Black Orchid, I sold out the show every time. It was kind of exciting. My whole thought was that I wanted to create the Blue Man Group of Desire. I wanted to create
Cool.
something that could change with the social, you know, the things that came into the social consciousness, like Blue Man Group. It always changes its show up depending on what's happening in the world. So my goal was that was my plan. I had bigger plans than just that. So I was hoping that investors would come around and but in the meantime, I'm still, you know, I'm at this point, I think I'm a single mom and divorced. And you know, I had a lot of friends and family and support that came to support me in the audience. And like I said, and it was through this. Mark Hauser, God rest his soul, was a big famous name in Chicago. Do you know him?
I've
His
heard
name?
the name. I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's passed on several years ago, but he was the first photographer and also a photographer friend of mine in Chicago named Dimitri. Really great shooters. They were the ones that said, "Hey, Monica, can you help me with this little job? You're kind of producing this whole thing," because I was handling the budget, I was handling the
Oh, yeah.
costumes. I had hired a friend of mine to create costumes. A woman named Leslie, who is an incredible artist in Chicago. She created my costumes, you know, one of a kind props, etc. So they saw what I was doing here. Can you produce this little shoot I've got here? I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
Never really thought about what producing was. And so I kind of blindly jumped in. If I looked at my call sheets, my production books from those early days, it just makes me cringe. But you got to start somewhere, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And so those friends of mine started hiring me to produce, and I started thinking, wow, this is a real job. Oh, okay. So I actually did what I do not ever recommend people doing, but I put a landing page on LinkedIn, called myself a producer, sort of faked it until I made it. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I just sort of figured it out as life, as you know,
Yeah.
through many ebbs and flows of my life, you just kind of figure it out. And it started making a lot of sense. You know, in the course of that time, I had had a bunch of skill sets that I had honed doing other things. I was for a period of time, I was also freelancing as a personal assistant to some wealthy families in Chicago. So that's sort of figuring things out on the fly. That's a feather in my cap. So that,
Absolutely.
I've been on the other side of the camera, and now I've been in the mechanics of how something works. So I kind of felt very, it just made sense when I got into producing. And then, I just have been busy ever since. Not really, but it was a pretty
Yeah.
quick incline to busy, to getting to busy, because it all made sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it seems like it's a nice little transition from what you were
Yeah.
already doing. So,
Yeah.
yeah. What was that first job that you produced?
Well, the first job that I did for Mark Hauser was a industrial job. I'll never forget. Marky was kind of ailing in health. He had bad diabetes, and he didn't really take good care of himself. He wore an eye patch. He had narcolepsy. Isn't narcolepsy where you fall asleep when you're at any moment?
I think
So
so, yeah.
he had true narcolepsy, that, and he also was in a like, we were shooting at this big factory, sort of factory workers, if you will, and
Mhm.
some portraiture in like Cincinnati or somewhere down there. And Marky at the time was in one of those Shriner little scooters that
Oh,
had a
yeah.
flag. And
Yeah.
so people would be like, "Where's Mark?" And you just have to look for the
The
flag in the
flag.
sea of industry. So it was an interesting job.
Yeah.
That was that first job.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then just took off from there, huh?
it did. Yeah, I just sort of figured it out. Like I said, if I look at the early estimates and early call sheets, but you got to start. Everybody's got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
I maybe after a year, I was even called by a rep who will remain nameless, New York rep, and my name started getting around. And I think base ingredients for being a producer is, I think you really have to enjoy people. And
Mhm.
it's shocking when I hear some producers that don't take care of their people or crew out there, because I just think that that's a base ingredient to make you a good producer. I think you have to love people. I love I that nurture in me. It's very satisfied. I'm Italian, so I love taking care of people. I love feeding people. But anyway, my name started getting around, and I got a call from a New York rep, and she had asked if I think she had hired me once, actually. She'd hired me once for a Chicago job with a really fantastic shooter, and it went well. And this is about a year in. And she called me sometime later because that job for GE went really well. She said, "Hey, have you ever shot in India?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Get off the phone. This is for our same client, same
Uh-huh.
photographer. So there's two ingredients that are known already to me. And I thought, well, I got to figure this shit out. So I realized I needed to get a fixer, a local fixer. I basically, because India's days are our nights, I was up like all the time through the night, talking with India, trying to find that right fixer in the village and that could transport us to the villages. I didn't go, but I sent my team, and it went really smoothly. But that's when I realized, wow, the sky's the limit. I could do, ask me anything. And so, I can produce anywhere. Any producer with their salt can produce anywhere, because you just
Yeah.
have to figure it out and find the resources. And yeah, so
I like that. I
that
like that you said yes to India, because I know some people are like, oh, it's India. I can't do it. I don't know anything about it. I can't do it. But it's like I tell my assistants, because it's the same way when I was first starting out, and even occasionally now, if you think you can do the job, and or you know that you can at least get the info to be able to do the job and do it well, say yes. Even if you've never done it before, if you're interested in it, if you like
challenge
it,
yourself.
yes. Yeah, don't just say no because you've never done it before. Now, if it's something like, if somebody called me and said, "Hey, I need a still life shoot, and it's going to have a light hitting this little spot, and it's going to be this," I don't do that. I know guys who do it.
Mhm.
I will recommend them all day long because that's
Yeah.
just not my thing. And I really don't want to learn it. I probably could, if you give me enough time, I could learn it and shoot it, but I'm not interested. But if it was something I was really interested in, like say it was going to be a car shoot, and it was going to be some, you know, $500,000 car, and like you want to shoot it, and like I don't really shoot cars, and because I've had this happen before, the producer, the art director will go, "But we really want you to shoot it."
Mhm.
And if I
Mhm.
then I'll go, you know what? I can do it. And then I'll start calling everybody I know who shoots cars. I'm like, hey, I
Yeah.
don't like this. And then I go test
Yeah.
it, figure it out, and do it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's great that you said yes and not just said no, I don't know how to do it.
You know, nowadays coming up to current, I work with a lot of photographer directors that don't are not represented. So I quite often am in their, you know, like in the position to sort of make sure we cross every T and dot every I, you know, to make sure they're well covered. So I
Yeah,
kind of work as that rep for them if they are not repped, right? And I've done that many times, and I always urge people to just to, like, you know, if they're anxious about hopping into the motion world, I don't really do that. Well, you know what, you just have to surround yourself with people that
mhm.
know more than you, learn from them, but bring them on to support you
Yeah,
and become that director. You're still directing the talent like you would if you're shooting stills. You know, so with all, you know, as our industry is constantly changing, I think you always have to challenge yourself. You always have to expand. Otherwise, you're not going to be on that, you know, on the train, right?
right. Yeah,
And there's ways to do that. There's all kinds of ways to do that. And, you know, in this day and age, we have every resource you can possibly imagine. From, I use WearSpot all the time. You
where's
know,
spot? I
WearSpot
don't
on
know where's
Facebook.
spot. Uh-uh.
I will invite you. It's a
Okay.
great resource, Mark. If you're in Timbuktu'sville or something, you post up, and it's our community that can recommend assistance or resources
Oh,
as you need
cool.
wherever you possibly can imagine.
That's great because there have been multiple times I've had shoots and they want local, they're like, you can
Yeah,
bring one assistant, but you're gonna have to get the rest local or whatever. And I'm like, oh crap. So I started looking up photographers and asking for recommendations from photographers, and some of them are happy to give it to you, some of them just
yeah,
don't respond to you. And so
yeah.
it would be nice. I'd love to have something like that.
So I'll invite you to WearSpot.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
resource
great.
I use quite often. And you know, now I certainly I produced in the smallest towns across the US a lot. I've heard it, you know, Hawaii, Mexico. It's, you know, wherever you need to take, wherever it needs to go, I'm there.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think who was it? Maybe Henry Ford said something to the effect of he doesn't really know how to build a car or whatever it was he said, but I surround myself with people who do.
Right. Exactly.
So that's why he was as successful as he was because,
Yeah.
and I also heard that about Gilles Bensimon, that he really didn't know how to shoot when he first started, but he hired all Herb Ritts as assistants.
Hmm.
And they helped set it all up, and then he became the photographer that he became. So,
You know that the fellow that I have mad respect, similarly, I have mad respect for Richard, the guy that started the TED Talks. Um,
mhm.
his thing is, I don't know a lot about a lot, so I'm going to surround myself with people know more than I do, and that should be the way it is in life, I think,
Oh,
because we
yeah.
can't know all that. You know, you can't. If presented with something, you might not know the answer, but there's ways to find the answer to support yourself, and you don't have to be ashamed about it. It's,
Oh,
I think,
absolutely.
having that eager mind of wanting to learn more, and I guess I would probably attribute that to my upbringing, back to my dad. He was in academics, you know, and he was a seeker of knowledge and most brilliant. So I think that was instilled. I just say that it's probably from my upbringings because all my siblings share that.
So, do any of your other siblings do anything in this business at all?
My oldest sister, who I kept up on a pedestal, she's the second oldest in the family. I have one brother and all the rest girls. And Erica is a
Wow.
scenic artist. And she lived in LA for
Cool.
a period of time until she got pregnant, decided not to raise her twins here in the city. So she moved to Minnesota. But Erica is a very talented senior artist, scenic artist, and she's amazing. And so she's the one person that is in the arts.
Okay. All right. So would the India job, would that be the most challenging job, you think? Or have you had others that would say are more challenging than
Oh no, I've got
that? So what would be the most challenging job you've had, or the top two or something?
One was a three city shoot, New York Tucson and San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
Just the logistics with that.
Yeah.
It's a lot. That would be
How many days was that?
with a finite budget, I might add. That would be like 2 days shooting in each city, or 2 or 3 days shooting in each city, travel day, tech scout day. So three, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 days each city. I would say 2 days each city, plus a tech scout, 3 days each city, 3, 6, 9, and then travel. So maybe 12 total.
Okay. Wow.
That was big. Also, excuse me, I have to plug in. I'm so sorry.
Absolutely.
One was, at this point, Mark, I love what I do. And sometimes I say yes to jobs, even though it's not about the money. It isn't about the money because there is no money. So, one of my regular clients that I love working with, basically came with a job and they didn't have a big budget. And I thought that's what I took to Hawaii. I decided I've always wanted to know what production is like in Hawaii. I need to grow my crew and understand what production looks like. So I'll go and I won't make a fee, but client will pay for my travel over, but I will have the opportunity to learn. So even at this time in my career, I still make choices to do things because in the end, it's benefiting me, not financially, but benefiting me with knowledge. So, challenging, yes, because you're working for free, but it's really about the knowledge that I seek. And I constantly, even just this week, actually, I'm working on a project. The budget's not great, but I really want to work with this photographer. And I hear more and more that photographers just kind of roll their eyes when they are expected to do a treatment, and a budget doesn't support the project really as it should be. And I will urge them always to do a treatment. And it's, for me, doing the budget and just sort of finessing and figuring out ways to cut corners if the budget is tight. It's just the cost of doing business. This job may go poof, but that's my cost of doing business. I'm not compensated for any of that time, but it's about, sometimes I'm wanting the desire to work with somebody that I haven't worked with, whose work I admire. I will go that extra effort. Like, I will ask the photographers, go that extra effort. You don't know if this is that job where, if two other bidding photographers on the triple bid are providing a treatment, you need to provide one, because that will be a boon, that will be hit against you if you don't. So it's just a price of doing business, and it sucks, but
I don't know who started that, and I would like to slap the hell out of them for starting this whole treatment thing. But
yeah. But now with the use of AI, do you use AI for your treatments at all?
I haven't used AI for a treatment.
Okay.
No, I've used it for storyboarding a shoot, but I haven't used it on a treatment yet.
Yeah.
But that's a good idea.
It's the many uses of it.
Yeah. My daughter uses it to proofread her papers for college.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of cheating. But I guess not. It's an editor.
Well, she writes it and then it proofreads it, and then she goes back in and edits what she doesn't like that it proofs. So it'll say, like, maybe, I guess if she says, I went here, they'll say, maybe you should say, maybe it'll change to, I traveled to this destination, and she can keep it that way, or she'll be like, no, I don't like that. I'm going to keep it with I went to.
Yeah, that's a good use for it. Yeah.
But I mean, my wife uses it for their social media posts or their blogs posts. She'll say, write me a blog on this subject about this, and this.
Right.
It knocks it out, and it saves her a day and a half of work. It knocks it out in 3 minutes or 3 seconds.
Yeah, so there's good uses for AI.
Yeah. As long as it's not taking on my shoots.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't replace your talent. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
What else do you want to talk about?
Well, I want to know so we gave me your challenging, and I've done the same thing. Like, I went to Budapest on a shoot and really didn't make any money. I mean, my travel was basically paid for over there and all that, but it was that last Terminator film that came out, and it was this catering company, and it was the executive catering part of that company, and they wanted me to go over and shoot stuff for their website. And a friend of mine was helping out, and he knew the woman who ran the company, and I had to be on set for Terminator. So I was like, you know what? I'll go to Budapest. I've never been to Budapest, so I was like, that'll be
Oh,
cool. I get to visit
good for
Budapest as
you.
well.
Good for
And
you.
the only bad thing was I went the wrong week because Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't on set the entire time I was there.
Oh, dang.
I should have changed my dates on that because that was the one
Oh,
time I
dang.
wanted. And that was the one time I picked. I was like, damn it, I should have picked another week.
Oh, dang.
But yeah, oh well. So what would be your favorite job you've done?
Oh gosh. So sorry, I'm like double tasking.
Oh, you're fine.
I've got my here, Malibu, just sending off a location contact. Double task.
Yeah,
Um, so my favorite jobs are always dependent on the circumstance around them. Like, for example, I just got a new client. It was a very small budget, but it couldn't, when the jobs go smooth. I also like I work with a photographer out of Texas, and he's my longest client. I've been working with him for 12 years.
oh wow, nice.
Yeah, we do a lot of Purina jobs together across the US. We've done timberland, we've done technology job, all kinds of industrial jobs and all kinds of stuff. We did a fantastic job, and it's when everything runs smoothly and I have put together that magic team
Yeah,
that just works. And so I have a lot of favorites, and they're all stuck in my brain as a result of that. It's about the chemistry of the people on set. Um, just that everything couldn't have gone smoother. Those are all my favorite shoots. So I have a lot of them. And the last two that I produced couldn't have gone smoother, like super thrilled clients. You probably saw it's my all-time favorite wraps shot that I've taken,
mhm.
that I just posted on Instagram.
Oh yeah, yeah, I saw that.
That was magic. Everything about it was client couldn't have been we exceeded their expectations, and so that's makes me happy when everything goes smoothly and the client tells me so, tells me how thrilled they were. They maybe purchased 10 images, but because they were so happy and it was so hard to pick because they were so great, they purchased 16 images in the end, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that's nice.
So I have a lot of favorites.
Do you, as far as crew goes, how much of the crew do you handle in general? I mean, I'm sure there are times where, I mean, as a photographer, I'd be like, well, I know I have my first assistant, but I don't always have, my second or third assistant if we go
I
out of
handle
it's
as
hair,
much
makeup, styling.
I handle all that. Yeah. Um, with the caveat that when I'm working with a photographer, say a highfalutin photographer who's got their people, I will always respectfully, any photographer, if I'm working with somebody new, if they've got their people, respectfully, I want to work with their people. And if there's a hole, I'll fill it. So I've shimmied into this food shooter world, and it's like a party every time I'm down with him shooting, and I'm sort of the new kid on the block, and I walk in and it's like a party happening. All these people have been working together with him for a good long time, and I'm the new kid on the block, so you kind of acclimate. And at some point, thankfully, after 3 or 4 shoots in the can, an assistant, the main assistant or regular assistant, is not available or has retired or changed career or something, so there's a hole that I can fill. I'm able to fill it, and it works like a song. So that happened with the stylist and an assistant, and just recently. And so respectfully, when I'm working with somebody new, if they don't have anybody, I will crew up everybody, because I have great relationships with a lot of great people, great talented artists here, and assistants, and ACs, et cetera, et cetera. I'm working with a photographer on this tighter project estimate right now, and he will be flying in, and he's looking to me to crew up everybody. So I feel very capable. That's one of the creative things about my job, is being able to sort of right fit personality with the photographer's energy. I had a big shoot last year for Toyota, where my photographer was really all about energy, and sort of really like, I'm a good bit of a hippie. I
Yeah,
love all my crystals, peace, love, and
yeah,
harmony.
yeah.
And she's sort of akin to that, in that zone. And I felt like I really needed to go to that extra effort. I pitched the idea of having an all-female crew for a car shoot. I thought that's cool.
Oh wow, yeah.
Um, and I had to go through many rounds of conversations on my own to find that right fit lighting person. And I did. And so every crew is custom fit for the project.
Well, that's great. I mean, it sounds like you love it, so that's
I do.
a plus for sure. So
Yeah,
you do stills and motion.
I do.
So you do it all.
Yeah, it's a rarity. I don't know about you, what you find, but I find it's a rarity that you get a stills only shoot these days because they're always trying to get social media, all the stuff, as much asset as they can
Oh
on
yeah.
a particular project when they're putting out the money. They
I
don't
just
want to
had
pay
one
for it,
yesterday that did
but
that.
yeah,
We were
yeah. So
talking, and it started off as stills, and then all of a sudden yesterday he goes, "Well, we want to shoot video as well." And I'm like, "Well, that's more, right? Because we're not just throwing that in." So
yeah,
okay, we do the estimate and send it to him, and then we'll cut if we need to. But yeah, very rarely. And a lot of what I've been doing lately has been shooting stills alongside video. So
yeah,
they may have a full crew, and then they hire me just to come in and shoot the stills alongside of those guys, which
yeah. I do that a lot
I
as well.
enjoy. Yeah, I actually really like that.
Yeah, I do key art and that kind of thing. I do a lot of that stuff. Yeah, it's interesting. I think you asked me about my favorite job. I have had crazy jobs like when I shot Elton John was in town for his final concerts at Dodger
Yeah.
Stadium, and it was his second to last concert that he was doing on stateside. And we did a cover shot for with him and Dua Lipa. And
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
so we had I think 15 minutes with Elton. That's what we were slated to have to get this double shot with him, and then we had some more time with her. And this was before his show, and so it was like mad dash, making sure everything's all set and ready. And but 15 minutes is a very short amount of time to
Hmm.
get a double, making sure everybody's looking good. He doesn't like sitting for pictures at all at this point in his life,
Yeah.
and I think what was said was you got 15, but he'd like 10. So we had even less time. So,
Yeah.
the pressure cooker of something like that is kind of awesome too. And that was when I was using all of the photographer who's really well-known celebrity shooter, super talented. She's got her guys that she loves working with, and I'm
Mhm.
kind of just fitting in but if you do it a few times with them, then you kind of feel part of the family. But that was kind of pressure cooker stuff, and it was really awesome. And then we all snuck into the show afterwards, so we watched
Oh,
his show.
very cool.
It was pretty incredible.
Nice.
It was cool.
So I don't want your favorite photographer, but I want to know who are some of the bigger name photographers you've worked with.
Well, one of my favorites, only because I worked the longest with him, and he's my brother, is Andy Marr.
Okay. Yeah.
Very, very talented. His stuff often, I mean, he's my brother, and we travel really well together. And he's my longest client, photographer client. But Thomas Hoofkin, very
Mhm.
talented. I worked with Dean West, Peggy Sirota here. I worked with Cliff Watts. I worked with um, uh New York. Oh my God, Billy Kidd.
Oh
These are
yeah,
some
yeah.
of the sort of higher
I hear
powered
you. Nice.
people. Yeah.
So are they all, and I don't want any names, but are they all good to work with, or is there like one or two you're a little bit of a pain in the ass, but it's going to be okay?
No, they're all good to work with. Yeah,
Nice.
some have a cloud of mystique around them and feel daunting. But once you sort of get in, and I think Peggy, I was nervous about working with her, and I think she has her guys that she likes to surround herself with, and they're great, fantastic team and crew. But when we got to know each other and she got to know me, we were talking about kids. I mean, it's level playing field. We're humans. We're having human, and she's lovely, absolutely lovely to work with. So some are more daunting than others because they come with this cloud of
Right.
history, but at the end, in the end of the day, we're all just humans in this planet, doing what we do best, and there's ways to. It's that curious thing. I think the psychological piece of, like, I am, part-time psychologist, if you will, because you're
Oh yeah.
having to navigate all these interesting personalities, sometimes quirky personalities, and you just find ways to navigate them and sort of bring down that, this is just a human to human thing. We're all doing this. We're not curing brain
No.
cancer. We're just making pictures. And I am a advocate for having a good time or enjoying your time together. It's like, make it a good time and a memorable time. That's my always my goal, and that's by food, energy on set. You know,
Oh yeah,
hopefully most of the work is done before we get to set. So I always like to create a memorable experience.
yeah, that's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you can get by like you hear photographers in the 90s, 80s, whatever, like, oh, this one's a pain in the ass, this one's a diva. I rarely hear that about people anymore who aren't those photographers.
You know, and that goes for every crew member. If you're an asshole, people will remember that. If you are, not a team player, people will remember that and they won't hire you again. I certainly won't.
Do you remember the
There's,
singer? He sang for Black Sabbath, and then he had his own, was Ronnie James Dio. He had a band called Dio. He was a big, like I said, he was a Black Sabbath lead singer for a while, and then he had his own career, which was pretty big. A friend of mine who was an assistant in New York was on a set with him, and he said Dio came on set and was just being an asshole to everybody, being an ass to the photographer and all this stuff. He said finally, my friend Robert was like, I had enough of it, so I just went over there and I was like, listen, you got to quit being an asshole to everybody here, or we're all going to leave. And he just blew him out of the water. And it was a 2 or 3 day shoot. And he said the photographer was looking at him like, shut the hell up. Everybody on set was like, you're fired. He said the next day Dio came in and was nice to every single person on set.
interesting.
Yeah, he said it was the weirdest thing. He said he was being such a dick. He said, I don't know if he was just having a bad day or what it was, but I would just told him, it's like, you got to quit being an asshole to everybody.
People will remember that.
Yeah. And he said the next day, a dude showed up and he was like, hi, how are you guys? Good to see you, all that kind of stuff. So,
And to that point, like you got to I always give everybody a second chance. I am a big on that because I think it's, sometimes people do have bad days or they forget.
mhm.
And so there's somebody in Chicago that I've was sort of blacklisted from the film industry, and I started working with him, and he became my right-hand guy. Like I could trust him and gave him that second chance. And I think that's, it's important to remember we're just humans doing this, and people do fuck up or mess up, and excuse my language. But there's
Okay.
maybe it is a bad time, but if you know what, there's we didn't get to this, but like there are a couple shooter directors that I won't work with again
Yeah.
because I did learn that this is not my cup of tea. This energy is something that drains me more than it doesn't fill me up, or it's just not right for me.
Right.
So there most definitively are some personalities that I won't work with again.
Well, I think if you feel that way when you're on set, I think you have to. And as far as the second chance thing, I'm totally with you. I have a hair and makeup person. I gave him 3 chances. And then
Yeah.
finally, like after third one, I was like, I'm just being an idiot at this point.
Yeah.
And I keep
Yeah.
hiring him again, so I won't work with him anymore. I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with him as a person,
Hmm.
but professionally showing up on time, showing up in general was an issue. And so, we let it go at that point. But so as far as anybody who wants to be a producer,
Yeah.
what would your advice be to somebody who wants to get into producing?
Oh, here's a small world funny story.
Yeah.
Also a reason why not to be an asshole, because you just never know where people are going to pop up later. Like art directors constantly change agencies, and
Oh yeah.
that happen, they might be at another agency, and if like you didn't get on with them. So don't be an asshole, firstly.
Mhm.
Secondly, here's a case study. So when I was in Chicago, I used to have Melissa Hennessy, who's a big friend of the industry, and she used to be at Columbia College. Do you know her, Melissa
I've
Hennessy?
heard her name. I've
Yeah,
never.
she's everybody knows her. She's a wonderful lady, and she called me up when she was at Columbia and said, Monica, I've got a really bright light. He's going to be graduating in 6 months. Can I make an introduction? And I said, sure. This lovely gentleman, I started hiring him before he actually graduated college. And then subsequently, after he graduated college, he was my right-hand guy for a year and a half. Like he and I did that 3-city job together. He and I
Wow.
traveled. We've done a lot of projects together. Maybe not that 3-city job, but we've done a lot of projects together. And he at some point, year and a half down the road, working with me, I will always push people out of the nest. You've got to go learn from, it's important to be on as many sets as you can. This is what I would suggest for somebody wanting to be in production, because everybody's going to do it differently. I don't have a jealousy bone in my body because I feel very strongly, and this is about every position in our career, in our business,
Yeah.
but nobody does what I do, right? Except for
Right.
me. Nobody does what the next person does except for them. So everybody's going to have their own style. So
Mhm.
the more sets you can be on, the more styles you learn to work that work for you or that you want to grab and make your own. And you sort of become more fully rounded if you have more experience out in the world. So push him out of the nest. He started working with other people, other teams. He then took on a freelance job with a big company in Chicago, and at some point, he had made such a name for himself. He got a position as a producer.
Wow.
So funny is, I have a daughter, and she just recently, January 2nd, started full time as a producer with the same company. But before that, she was his right hand.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
wow.
she worked freelance, but she also worked with him under at this company. So you just never know where people are going to pop up. So my advice is to get as much experience, real-time experience, working with as many people as you can, because you will find your flavor. You will find your what you like and don't like only by the real-time experience out there in the world, meeting as many people and working under as many people as you can.
Yeah.
It's
That's
just
awesome.
more feathers in your cap, and then you become more valuable to me anyway if you become more well-rounded. So
Absolutely. That's great advice. Yeah. I love that. Okay.
yeah.
So we've gone a little over an hour now. So I'm going to ask you the final question.
Okay.
What would be the strangest, most interesting, or even your favorite memory so far through this career? And we can go even into the modeling if you want to. We can go to the modeling, the acting thing, all the way into producing.
I don't know about the straight. You said the strangest.
Strangest, most interesting. It doesn't have
I
to,
think the most interesting. I'll stay in that. The
yeah.
most interesting is these incredible friendships I've created from mostly from my production career. I think my oldest friend in life is actually from my dancing company. She actually lives in Santa Barbara. She's from my dancing company in Minnesota.
Really?
My oldest friend in life.
Oh, wow.
But beyond that, I haven't really stayed in touch with many of the people I graduated high school from because, we just have different lives.
Yeah.
And obviously I made a baby with the man I met in Germany, but in Austria, but I think it's about the richness. The most interesting thing is the richness, because anybody that chooses our career path, like whether it's producing, whether it's photographer, whether it's director, whether it's productionist, any of the lanes in our career path in this world, I think are people that, it takes a certain kind of person to not choose a 9 to 5, right? They
Yes.
would be comfortable with a freelance world. That's a particular person. And those
Mhm.
people, that's my sandbox. And I think it gives me such joy because I've met some interesting, wonderful, profound friendships through this industry. It's people that have that sort of like thinking. So that's the most interesting thing for me. And when I reflect on my past, I mean, it's the whole thing is a little bit quirky and weird, right?
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
past to here. I think if you take the
Absolutely.
cap off of everybody's life, you'll hear everybody's got sort of an unconventional career path. I know a handful, not several, but a handful of photographers that jump straight into shooting pictures, and we're sitting at a table with Microsoft creative concepting, job projects, and they didn't even go through the assisting time, but they're anomalies, right? I
Mhm.
think
Oh, yeah.
the organics of it is that you will go through that traditional, like you've got to assist people to understand how it works, to understand the cogs on the wheel. Unlike me, where I'm a producer and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I would not recommend that path. But
Yeah.
some people take that path and they'll make their way with it.
Yeah.
So just
Absolutely.
being open and I mean enjoy the journey. If you're choosing this, then freaking enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the same thing. You got to have the personality to do it and then just enjoy doing it. And just, I always tell even on the days where it's like, this has not been a good week or it's been a slow month or whatever. It's like, well, it's a lot better than sitting in front of a computer looking
Oh,
at numbers in a suit and tie all day long
yeah.
at a bank or a law firm or something. So my dad wanted me to be a lawyer, and I was like, I just want to shoot rock bands. And he's like, well, you could be an entertainment lawyer. I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer. I have no desire to be a lawyer. So that's why I'm a photographer. Well, thank
With
you so much.
You're welcome. I was going to say with every job, it's a mini family.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
like that, you know, the cohesion with the art buyers to, you know, we're all on the same team, right? And the richness, what fills my cup up is when I get called dream team.
Yeah.
And then I know I'm doing my job. I've made people happy. I've accomplished and then some. And so that's where I get my energies from as well. You know, often we don't get thanked. We producers, it's sort of gone by this wayside of what we did, the efforts we did. But when you get, you know, somebody takes the time or a client sends you a very beautiful email thanking you, and I saw what you did. That's just that puts so much gas in the tank.
Well, you're like the mom of the set. It's like you think about the moms. Mom doesn't get a whole lot of praise for all the things a mother does.
Yeah.
And you basically like the mom on the set because you were doing all these things, and a lot of these people just take it for granted that it's just done, and nobody thinks about how it's getting done. Nobody thinks about who got the food catered, who figured out how we're going to shoot here, who got this location. Nobody thinks about a lot of those things.
Who created the schedule? Yeah,
Yes,
all the things.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Monica, thank you so much. This was a lot of
Mark,
fun.
thank you. That was a fun journey going back to now, from
You did
starting at the
good.
start to now. So thank you for allowing me to relive that.